Father, we thank you for this time and thank you for gathering us together. We pray that we may learn as much as we can. Thank you for our speakers today, and I pray for our blessed time in the fellowship. In Jesus' name I pray.
Welcome, coaches. My name is Gary Williamson. I'd like to thank ambassadors, specifically Goran and Stephen and Emily, for inviting me onto this webinar. Tremendous that we can share knowledge across the globe as we look to help young people improve their lives through the game of soccer. In listening to Goran and reading your comments on what it is you need exactly, it seems that you want to increase your knowledge, learn new things about the game, so you can take the game to the communities in which you coach and help the young people. So this morning, I'm going to give you something completely new in terms of methodology and how we coach the game. Over here in the United States, for the last 20 years, we've had 14 million children playing soccer. Sadly, by the age of 13, 75% of children quit. They drop out. So as a result of that, the Federation hired 12 full-time staff members from all over the world and completely revamped the way we're teaching the game to try and right the ship and increase participation, but also retain participation in the game. So now the Federation is looking at the game from a holistic perspective, where we're looking at things that are connected and not looking at things separately. So if we look at coaching and you think about your tasks as a coach, you have numerous tasks in which you have to do. So there are basically 6 tasks of a soccer coach. Number 1, leadership, which is the golden thread and runs through everything that you do as a coach. Number 2, leading your team. Number 3, leading, mentoring individual players. Number 4, managing the environment that you're in, be it on a team, in a club, in an association. How do you manage all the peripheral opponents, so to speak, that impact how the children perform on the field? A lot of things to take care of there. Then we have coaching in the game when they're actually competing. And in order to do well in the game, then we have coaching training sessions. So today I'm going to focus on coaching training sessions. So based on research, there are many different ways to train the game, as I'm sure all of you have experienced. Over here, we've decided on our way, which is one way, and there are many different ways, but we feel this is the best way for young children to fall in love with the game and be excited so that they keep coming back, because number 1, they're learning, and number 2, they're improving and developing by having fun. So they're developing and they're having fun. The 2 basic needs of children in any sport. They must have fun and they must learn so they feel like they're developing. So the methodology that we're using over here is called play, practice, play. So if you have a training session that lasts 90 minutes, you would break that session up into 3 parts. The first part is the play phase. The second part is when you practice and teach. And then the third phase is the play phase, where they scrimmage as close to the real game as possible. And over here, I'm not so sure of your format in Kenya, but we play small-sided games that are developmentally appropriate by age. So for under 6 and under 8, we play 4 versus 4. For under 10, we play 7v7. For under 12, we play 9v9. And for 13 years of age and up, we play 11v11. So play, the first phase, straight into small-sided scrimmages as soon as the children turn up for practice. Small numbers. Practice is where we break the game down and help teach them. And then play 2 is larger numbers as close to the real sided game that they play on the weekend when they're competing. So I'm going to share my screen now and show you a typical play, practice, play session for 13 years of age and older. So this is an 11v11 practice session. So at the top, it's very important that the coach knows what it is they want the children to do. So we have a goal for training. So the goal here is to improve the way we build up in the opponent's half in order to create chances to score. In this training session, there are certain player actions that we're going to focus on. The skills and the techniques involved in helping our players to create chances. So we're going to work on passing and dribbling. The player on the ball has that decision whether they should pass or dribble. Secondly, we're going to work on 2 versus 1s and 1 versus 1s. So the secret sauce of soccer, as Goran will tell you, is to try and create an overload when we're attacking, so we have more players than they do. And then thirdly, if we are doing well in those previous player actions, we may try to teach how we change the pace, the rhythm, the tempo of our attack. When to go slow, when to go fast, if there's space to attack, or if we are numbers up. In order to do those 3 main player actions in those 3 main categories of passing and dribbling, number 1, 2v1s and 1v1s, number 2, and changing pace, number 3, the players need certain qualities. And you can look at your players and you could say, oh my goodness, yes, that player there, what an athlete, physically very strong. You could look at another player and say, wow, that player makes very good decisions. They just see the game, they know the game, their soccer IQ is superior. You may see another player and with the ball, they are just very technical, very clean in their execution of the mechanics. So in this session, we're going to emphasize the qualities of the players making good decisions by reading the game better. We're going to try to encourage them to take initiative, so they're anticipating versus reacting. And we're going to strive to improve their technique in the player actions of passing and dribbling and 2v1s and 1v1s. So the key qualities are qualities we're trying to develop in our players, short term, long term, over time, but they are the qualities that the players need to execute the player actions. So the session is very clear as a coach, right at the outset, what we're trying to do. So here now you can see the first play phase. And our objective to achieve our training goal is to pass or dribble the ball forward to create chances to score goals. So we're going to focus on passing and dribbling. Soccer is a forward thinking, passing, running, moving, shooting game. And we have to teach the players to have a good mentality to go forward. On the ball, for sure, and off the ball. So here you can see a 4v4 game. As soon as the players arrive at the field, we get them scrimmaging. Brief introduction, and off we go. 2 fields, maximum participation. Notice the position of the coach, positioned at the end of the field, so he can see all the players all of the time, not turning their back on the action. And then we'd have a good supply of balls so that we can keep the games flowing and there's limited stoppage. So if you look at the organization, you can see the description, the size of the field, the size of the area based on the 4v4 game. Because we're working on an attacking topic here, it's quite big, 30 yards by 40 yards. So we're kind of leaning on the side of a bigger field so the players have more time and space on the ball, so they have more opportunities to create chances. Below the organization, you'll see keywords. So as coaches, sometimes we're very guilty of joysticking and overcoaching and telling the players what to do. We want to try and get away from that type of coaching where we're very coach-centered and we're making the decisions for the players. We're striving to be more player-centered because soccer is a player-centered game where the players make the decisions on the field. So we do shout a lot on the sideline or prompt them with verbal commands. What we're trying to do here is choose words very carefully that teach the cues to the players. So if we're trying to train the key quality of reading the game and making decisions, and we're teaching passing and dribbling, we have to think what cues are important in passing and dribbling. And then we're using those key words to teach the cues. So here, this coach has chosen opening. Take him or her on. Go. Just write down some key words that you would use that are not commanding, but teach the cues of passing or dribbling. Stephen, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you give me a key word that you would use that would cue a player on the decision to pass or dribble? What would be a good key word that you could use on the sideline?
Head up.
Excellent. Why do we need our head up, Stephen?
Awareness. You can see space. You can see defenders. You can see your teammates. You can read the game better. Make good decisions.
Brilliant. See, if we can't see it, we can't play it. So can we teach the players to get their head up? So that's a great key word to use because now it forces the players to look up and see their options for their teammates, but also where the opponents are positioned. And if we think about head up, really, we want to teach them to have their head up before they receive the ball. So they're looking before they get it to know what's on. And they're also looking after their first touch. So just like in basketball, a point guard doesn't dribble with their head down, they dribble with their head up, so they're scanning so they can see everything that's going on the court. So keywords are very important, and you have to choose your keywords to teach the cues. We're not shouting commands such as pass, dribble, because now we're shouting the player actions and the player is just responding to the coach's command without really solving the problem for themselves. In addition to keywords, we have guided questions that we use when the players are brought in. And in the first play phase, we would bring the players in a couple of times. The first time, we're just trying to plant the seeds for the topic, which is creating chances in the opponent's half through the build-up play we're using. So we would bring all the children in and we would say to them, how can we find or create openings to play the ball forward and score? And here what we would do is we would not ask the children to respond with a verbal answer. What we would say is, think about that question and go show us on the field. If we ask the children to respond immediately with a verbal answer, then oftentimes the child who is the loudest or the most extrovert speaks up, and that kind of influences the thought process of all the other children. So we give them the questions, we send them back out there, and then we watch to see if they can find the answers in what they do. After a while, we would bring them in. Now we would ask them the same questions, and here the children would share their responses. So here we're using what we call low order questions just to plant the seed for our training goal to mentally and physically get the children into the topic that we're trying to teach. And there you can see the answer on the guided question below. Okay, so now we go into the practice phase. So in the practice phase, we have what we call a core activity. So here you can see we're in the opponent's half in the correct area of the field, which is important so the children can transfer from the practice to the match by position where they play in the game. So there has to be a strong transfer of learning from your practice to the game. So we're closing that performance learning gap from training to the game. So here we're using what we call reality-based training. The activity, the exercise, is as close to the real game as possible. No longer are we doing drills with isolated technique with no opponents and no decision making. Because we only see the children twice a week, the biggest enemy we have, coaches, is time. We don't have enough time to help the children become truly skillful and fall in love with the game if we're doing isolated drills that are not fun based on their age. So can we get to the game as close as possible? So here we've got attack versus defense. The attacking team that we're focusing on going to one big goal with a keeper. For the other team, the defenders who are playing numbers down, they are incentivized to attack once they win the ball through good defending by trying to score on 2 counter goals on the halfway line. 6 verses 5. Again, we're using the same key words, so they start to stick with the children in their muscle memory. Now we're starting to add a few more guided questions when we bring them in to talk to them, as we start to really force them to think about creating openings. How can we force the opponents into making errors? So in this phase, this is where you would teach, this is where you would coach. And we have what we call a toolkit. There are 8 different ways that you can teach, that you can affect behavior with your teaching actions. And I'm not going to go into detail on those in this session, but just think of some of the different ways that you could teach. Just write down on a piece of paper, what are some teaching actions that you could use to affect behavior of your children? Let's see, would anybody like to just raise their hand and give us one way that you could affect behavior? How could you teach in the practice phase? We've mentioned 2 already. One is using keywords. Another is using guided questions. Ricky, how are you feeling today? Do you think you've got one for us? Just unmute yourself, Ricky. Just think of how you train your children. What are some of the ways that you teach? You try to put information into them.
I think repeating just using repeating certain tasks or something, certain things in the part of the play.
Well done, Ricky. I like that. Yeah, repetition is very important, especially on the goal for the training session and the learning objective, which is to create passing options by passing or dribbling forward. So repetition is very important. So if we're using, Ricky, different keywords, then they're not going to resonate with the children. So we have to keep repeating our keywords so they stick. If we find that this area that we've got is not organized, let's say it's too big or it's too small, or we feel that it's too easy for the Blues to attack, then as a coach, we would need to adjust this environment. So what we do is we observe what the environment we're giving them, and we use what we call checking and adapting. So just by simply changing the environment, we're affecting the children's learning by altering this environment they're in. Another way we could teach is by giving a demonstration. A picture paints 1,000 words. So can we show them a good picture? If we see the children doing the actions that we want, the correct behavior, then we give positive reinforcement. We lavish them with praise. Now they hear and feel good about themselves because the coach recognizes they are doing the actions right. We can use commands sometimes, but not all the time. So if the players understand the why, for example, in a 2 versus 1, to accelerate past the defender then we can give commands such as go, which is telling them to respond quickly. It's prompting them in the moment to react. So there are 8 different ways that we can use teaching actions to affect behavior to improve the children's learning. This is the core phase. Now, as Ricky said, we want repetition. And we want repetition on the player actions that we're trying to teach. Passing and dribbling, 1v1s, 2v1s. So when you see very carefully, you're watching the activity and you see that you're getting a lot of repetitions. Let's say you're getting 1 versus 1s. And in those 1 versus 1s, they may be successful or they may be unsuccessful. If you have a very keen eye, like Goran, for example, you know exactly how many 1v1s took place on the right flank, on the left flank, and in the middle of the field. Let's say Goran said, well, we had 10 chances. We had 10 1v1s. Goran would be able to tell me how many times they were successful and how many times they were unsuccessful. So he would say, Gary, out of those 10 chances we created where we got a 1 versus 1 in the opponent's half, we gave the ball away 8 times. Sometimes we dribbled right into the opponent. Other times we didn't take the player on because we didn't have the confidence and we passed the ball backwards or sideways. So then now, if Goran's the coach, he would say, I need to check and adapt. So I need to make the activity easier because it's too difficult, too challenging for the players where they're not being successful in the 1 versus 1s. So here, he would go to the next activity, which is less challenging. So here we've gone from a 6 versus 5 plus a goalkeeper. And now Goran, if he's the coach, has taken off one of the defending players to make it easier for the attacking players to have success in the player actions, passing forward, dribbling forward, 1 versus 1s and 2 versus 1s. So now the player on the ball has more time, they have more space to make the right decision and to execute. We're still using the same key words. We're still using guided questions when we bring the children in to force them to problem solve and find their own creative solutions. If we tell the children the answers, then in their obedience to please the coach, that is all they may do. Where you'll be surprised sometimes by the answers and the creativity and the solutions the children come up with. When they run out of solutions, as the adult, as the coach with more experience, that's when we can come in and start to give them some of the answers by trying to guide them. As you ask the children questions and you listen very carefully to their answers, you have to go where the children's answers take you, because that's where their level of knowledge is at. Let's go back to the core. And if Goran's my coach and he sees 10 1 versus 1s, and now we have a 70% success rate, 7 out of 10 times we got behind, around, or through the opponent in a 1 versus 1, he says to himself, this core activity is too easy. We're having good success. The challenge level is very good, and the players feel confident in the 1 versus 1s. So now what he does, he takes it up another level and he goes to the more challenging activity. So in the core, we had a 6 versus 5 plus a goalkeeper. Now he's going to go to a 6 versus 6 plus a keeper. So even numbers with the outfield players. Now, the good players who've been successful in the 1 versus 1 are really enjoying the practice because they're being challenged with even numbers, which is very realistic to the real game they play on the weekend. Again, we're using the key words. We're using the guided questions. Higher order questions which are forcing the players to think. So in our session during the practice stage, we're asking ourselves, as a coach, number one, is it organized? Yes, the environment's organized. We're getting good success, good fun through the playing of the game. Is it game-like? Does it look like soccer? Well, to look like soccer, we've got to have attacking, we've got to have transition, we've got to have defending, and we've got to have transition. Yes, it looks like soccer. We have those things: teammates, opponents, a ball, a field, goals, attacking and defending. Thirdly, to Ricky's point, do we have repetition on the player actions that we're trying to teach? And we have to remind them of those so we stay focused. If we've got repetition, now we're trying to be very critical with our observation. What is the challenge level like? Number 4. What is the success rate like on passing and dribbling? 1v1s, 2v1s. And now, if the challenge level is okay, stay in the core. If the challenge level is too difficult, go to the less challenging. If it's too easy, go to the more challenging. Once we have those 4 things, organization, game-like, repetition, challenge, now we can start to coach using the teaching actions we described. Keywords, guided questions, checking and adapting, demonstration, positive reinforcement, using commands, different ways to affect behavior. So this is the practice phase. We spent 30 minutes in the play 1 phase, small-sided games, children playing. They often ask, when are we going to scrimmage, coach? Well, guess what? We're going to scrimmage right from the get-go. After 30 minutes, we spend 30 minutes in the practice phase, in the core activity, or the less challenging, or the more challenging activity. From there, now we must see if the children have learned. Can they do it? And as a coach, sometimes we get so caught up in what we're going to teach, what we're going to coach, and we forget about the learning. The learning is more important than the teaching, the coaching. Did the children do it? Did they get it? Can they put this into the game? So now we go to play 2. And this is a scrimmage with a first half and a second half. And depending on how many you have at practice, if you have 10, you play 5v5. If you have 8, you play 4 versus 4. If you have 16, you play 8 versus 8. It's the game. Think about the game. We have 3 moments to visit with the children. 1 before the game, 2 at half time, and 3 after the game. So now with our guided questions before the game, we would ask questions that review what we've done in the training session. to remind them, to refresh and go over the learning. At half time, we would use evaluative questions and ask them, so how did we do on passing? How many chances did we create? How many chances did we create from a pass? How many from a dribble? How many from a 1v1? And they can give examples from their experience. After the game, now we would sum it all up. We would tie a bow on the game. In the second half, well done. We created a lot more chances than the first half. And now let's see if we can do this in the game on the weekend. So we would link what we've done in this match, in this game, play 2, to the actual game scrimmage we're going to play on the weekend. Play, practice, play, coaches. At the end of your training session here, we have the 5 elements that I've alluded to earlier, and that's a winning formula for you, the coach, to check your effectiveness. Organization, game light, challenge level, game light, repetition, challenge, and then coaching. At the end of every session, it's important for you to reflect. Okay, what was my training goal? Build up in the opponent's half to create chances. Did I achieve it as a coach? Did the players achieve it with their outcomes, with their behaviors? You could score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. You could give your players a score of 1 to 10. To really be analytical about your coaching. Secondly, ask yourself, okay, what did I do well? Thirdly, what could I do better? So it's very important for you to give conscious thought as you reflect on what you did and the way you did it. Otherwise, we just run sessions by coaching off the top of our head and not giving any forethought or afterthought to what we did. We have to strive to improve as a coach, just like we're asking our players to be responsible for their own development. Coaches, any questions?
Gary, I've got a question. Just as when you're setting up the session, the players first arrive, how much you want to get them on the field and playing as quickly as possible? Do you share with them, hey, our theme is this is our goal, or is it do they kind of like discover it even as you're coaching at the beginning?
That's a great question, Stephen. As soon as they show up to the field, one player arrives, another player arrives, we play 1v1. Then another player arrives, 2v1. Then another 2v2, until we get to our 4 versus 4. Then, as they're scrimmaging, we would bring them in. When they're all at training, Stephen, that's when we plant the seed for the goal for training. Hey, in the last game we played, we were the better team. We had the ball so many times in the opponent's half, but how many chances did we create? We lost the game, and yet we were the better team because we didn't create enough chances, even though we had the ball in the other half. So that's what we're going to work on in training today. Very simple, clear and concise. Connect it to the last match, Steve. And if they can come up with the goal for training with their answers, better still. Good question. Anybody else? No question is a silly question. There are no good, bad, right or wrong questions, coaches. So fire away.
Just a quick question. I think here we're normally used to players come, they get to do some physical warm up, and then they get to start. Yes, just now with the practice play. Just is there at any point that they will do some sort of with stretches or physicals or something, or it's just let's play?
Ricky, that's a great question. Young children, they can bend every which way anyway. Get them straight into playing. Older children, we can do a little bit of stretching, perhaps in play one. Think back to when you were a child and you played in the streets, in the park, in the yard. Did you ever stretch? You just went straight into playing. Now, we need to teach you healthy habits that last a lifetime. So we can do a little bit of it if it's important, and perhaps ask them to come up with a stretch so the onus is on them and we all copy the stretch that one of us is nominated to do. But don't waste too much time. Time's your biggest enemy, and kids are not falling in love with the game because we're doing all this other stuff that isn't the game. So straight into the game, a little bit of stretching if you feel it's important. That's your choice. Get them smiling, get them physically active, and they're learning through playing the game. The game is the best coach there is. Good question, Ricky. Any more questions, coaches? Yes, Carrie, is it?
My name is Kerry. Yeah.
Kerry.
My name is Kerry. I joined in a bit. Yeah, I just joined a bit late. I have this question I'd like to be helped with. Mostly when you're handling these kids, we try to make them have a lot of fun. You show them the drills, and at some point, kids will always be kids. In every session, they want to challenge one another. How do you incorporate that in a way after if it's 1v1, 2v1? At the end of the day, they want to challenge the other guy. And maybe they're 10 or they're 20. Like, we want to beat you guys, we want to beat you guys. What do we do with that? Because at the end of the day, the kids want to prove a point to the other. And
Yeah.
if you stop it because you don't want to have 8v8, they're interested in having that session. How do you go about that?
So that's where they challenge each other in the practice phase. They get an opportunity to do that, but also in the play one phase where the numbers are small.
Yeah. But after that, those small numbers, they'll have fun through that.
Yes.
But at some point, you see the buddy kind of a thing. My buddies versus your buddies. At some point, they want to say, Coach, last time they beat us. Do you always have to let them do that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so you can do that after your play two phase, right at the end. Right. Let's have a competition. 1 versus 1 going to goal. Keep your score. We're all going to play each other. So end on a fun note where they just love the practice and they're so sad when it's over. They can't wait for the next practice.
Thank you.
Good point, Carrie. I like that. Well, coaches, it's been my pleasure to present to you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And I wish you all the very best when you next practice with your children. And give practice play a try. It may surprise you just how much the children love it because they're scrimmaging for 2/3 of the practice.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is time a factor during the training section?
Time?
Yeah, because we are dealing with kids and the time of transition, the time of the warm up, the time of the transition from practice to the game. Is time a factor?
It is, and depending on your skills to transition from one phase to the next, I would start with the end in mind, Abdul. So start with your play two phase, build your field, whatever size it is. And then for your practice phase, build your session inside that field. So you start with the end in mind, play two, work backwards chain, And then you can just pick up your cones very quickly and we're straight into the next phase. So you're minimizing the downtime. Now, obviously with the weather, if it's very hot and they need water, then give them a good break in the shade. But try and minimize your downtime when you're transitioning from one activity, one phase to the next. Start with the end in mind and build backwards.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Goran, can you take
Thank you, Gary.
If you could take over, thank you.
Alrighty.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, coaches.
Thank you, Gary. All right. So Ricky and Stephen, was that a pretty helpful look at the methodology of engaging children that you're working with? So it pretty much given a few looks at the whole process of what do you do with the players and what do you focus as a coach, so you can really work on both ends, how to improve players and how to improve yourself as a coach during the training session. So what will be the one major takeaway for you from this time that you had today? So what is the one thing that you will take from this session? So if you can come around and tell me one thing that was helpful to you and that you would adopt. Anyone? I think everybody's muted or something is, I can't hear anybody on this end.
Goran, I just sent to the group, but I think the whole guided questions is such a great reminder and a skill of, or even at some point, I think you said, learning is more important than the coaching. So how do I ask good questions that really help players discover for themselves rather than me talking? I feel like that's usually the feedback I get at coaching courses is stop talking so much. So
I think that's the main point, how to become player-centered as opposed to being coach-centered. It's not about a coach, it's about the player. So it's a good skill to develop. Anything else that you would take from this time? One thing that is resonating with you. I can't hear you, Jean-Paul. You look like you're talking, but I can't hear you. Still no, can't hear you.
I don't know why.
Oh, now I can.
Good. I was saying that those three stages, which is play, practice, and play, which sometimes for us, we have separate time for skills, separate time for playing, but I saw that it is integration of practice, but still in the game. That's what it was something I had as my
This is,
takeaway.
yeah, this is just one way that you can do it. This is not the only methodology that you can use as you train. You can apply the other ones as well. This is just one way to work with the younger kids. So if you have a team, if you're working with a certain age group, that you will find skill and then training, small numbers, big number, larger numbers, and then the game. You can do that as well. This is just one way that you can skin the cat.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions, or if there is no comment, so only 2 have benefited from it. I hope that more people would get some benefit from the time. But if you are
And-
not really taking anything from it, at least one thing, then maybe you will need a little bit more time to reflect.
I was just gonna say, feel free if it doesn't, if your sound's not working or something, you can't unmute. Emily, you can see if that can be fixed. Otherwise, you can also put in the chat on the sidebar, and you can.
Yeah, I
we can
think
read
yeah,
that.
chat would work. And you know, again, you know, if you need a little bit of time to reflect today and tomorrow, I would love to hear, you know, one takeaway from you, what you would take from this session, if this was helpful in any way to you. Well, if there's no other questions, or at least anything to further discuss with the topic, Ricky, I don't know if you had any agenda. Okay, I think we have response from Jeremy.
Yes, go ahead.
I think those 5 questions that you really should be asking. Is the activity organized? Do you have enough repetition? Is it challenging? And you know, the 4th one was, is there structure? So those are important ones. And then I think for anything that you do in your activity, those should be really important ones to ask. And I think one thing, when we as coaches tend to run drills, I think most of us are comfortable with running drills. We're running into a big issue. Is it a game like? Is it a drill game like? Does it benefit kids? If it doesn't have an option to attack, to score, or to defend, and then once you transition from attacking to defending, can you transition into attacking and then have a counter goals? That always is one of those things. If you want to run a drill and it's not a game like, how can you adapt the drill to become a game like one? So if you're running 1v1 to 1 goal, can you add a counter goal that if a defender wins the ball, he doesn't just stop, but upon winning the ball, he can turn back and run to score on the other end? That will be a small example. So is it organized? Is it game-like? Does it have enough repetition? How challenging it is? And then, am I doing some coaching that is relevant to my players? Do my players really benefit from the coaching, or am I just sharing a super knowledge of the game that I have, and I'm trying to impress my players of how much I know the game. And you as a coach are using the language that is not helping them, but is pretty much showing your expertise. So think about it. You're not talking to professional players. You're talking to children who are learning and developing. All right. Anything else on this? So thank you, Jeremy, that you have shared that, and that will be really beneficial to your coaching. Anybody else? Techno C8. CSLC. Aidan, it's good to have you in it. Charles, any one of you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Fred. I'm really sorry. I joined a bit late though. I was caught up in traffic. Yeah, but thank you so much. From what I've heard today, it's amazing, and I believe it's something. Once I get the notes, something that is applicable in real life, and also, of course, in the game. And this will really help us develop our players, and also just be able to make them better. Thank you.
Hey, good to see you, Fred.
Good to see you.
Anyone else? Stephen, thank you for the opportunity. And Ricky, thank you for organizing all of that. Emily, thank you for hosting. It was a true pleasure. So I'm turning it back to you guys.
Thanks.
All right,
Goran.
thanks. Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, thanks, Goran. And I just wanted to share something about being player-centered. I think from this side, it's normally like the coach in control of a lot of things. And then one thing that I really liked is just being player-centered and having and just using keywords. That's something that has really stood out for me, that throughout the session there are these keywords that are continually just being asked to the players, being mentioned to the players, and that's something that I think that really will build just when it comes to will build me when it comes to youth, children's coaching and youth.
Yeah, just again, Goran, I think you're still here, but thank you for joining us and bringing Gary as well. I know we'll follow up just of kind of to be able to get some notes for the guys. I think I know we can Google search this and find some stuff, but if there's some simple things that can help guys in this journey, I think that's great. One thing I just want to highlight with this that's hitting me as well, you know, our vision here as ambassadors is especially within the coach development side of kind of our work is really raising up father figure coaches, and we want to see father figure coaches on every field in Kenya. That's something we talk about, and I just found it interesting, like, you know, the skill set here, and Gary mentioned this of Goran being a very detail-oriented coach. So if you ask him how many times did they run this practice or this activity, they'll say, it was 12 times or 10 times. How many were successful? How many were not? It's Goran paying attention. It's a coach seeing the game, seeing what's happening, and then able to kind of shape his questions and the key words around kind of the football element. But when we talk about father figure coaching, this is not player-centered, is not just talent, it's not just football. These are the same skills that we're looking at for character, that we're looking at for you know, that ability to see what's happening in the personality, the mind, the heart of a player, and that we're also learning the skill to ask good questions about how a player is growing in the way that they love their family, that they engage with their friends, the decisions that they're making. Key words, you know, I'm thinking of like, what are character key words that we would use as coaches? So for dribbling, it might be, you know, head up or this, creating space, the ones that Gary mentioned. But what would you look at for a character when you have all the guys that are kind of messing around before or after a session, and you're looking at how they engage as players, as friends? Are we also instilling these key words of the type of boys, girls that you have worked, but the type of men and women that you want them to be? So I just think it's a great, again, the skills transfer. And we care about both. And I just feel like there's some really wonderful things that were drawn out that kind of get my mind thinking. So as we wind up here, I just want to share two quick things, and then I'll open up and I'll let Ricky kind of close us fully. But first of all, this has just been a wonderful journey for us of Coaches Fellowships over this year, somewhat forced upon us by COVID. But we've liked this forum and this opportunity for us to gather as coaches. And as we wind up this year, we're looking at doing one more Coaches Fellowship. We'd love to do it in person, but we're just not sure what the next couple weeks are going to look like. So pay attention to the WhatsApp group. Pay attention to just messages. We'd love to kind of have one last one to close out the year. And as we look at next year, even if things open up, we would love to continue to gather online in this on a monthly basis, where we can get guys like Goran, we can have local guys, international guys talking about football, faith, and future. And that's something we want to continue. I hope this has been a great resource for you guys, both for fellowship and to gain knowledge. But we want to continue this into next year. With that being said, tomorrow, as we send out today's talk, we will also be sending out a little survey, which is just really helpful for us. If you guys have any feedback for us as the ambassadors team organizing this, things you'd want to hear, things you enjoyed, things that you would want to change, just we've got some simple questions. If you can take a couple minutes, again, hopefully that helps us hear what's going on from you guys, hear your feedback, and we can make necessary changes to keep making this a fruitful experience for all of us. So just wanted to close with those things. As always, we love you guys. We care about you guys as coaches. We're excited about the influence a coach has in community, in society, on the fields, in families, and want to continue to be a voice of encouragement, to cheerlead, to resource, to train, equip in ways that we can as ambassadors. But we love walking with you guys in this journey, and are learning a lot in the process as well. So thanks for journeying with us in this. It really has been a fascinating year, and we hope to close well. And as always, you know, we in the group, we share this every once in a while, but if there are ever things that are going on, prayer requests, things that are happening, please share with us. We love to come alongside and just know what's going on, and stand with you guys and some of the burdens, the challenges that you guys are facing. So Ricky, I'll turn it over to you. And then I think we might end early today. Americans, bring Americans in, and we're going to end early.
All right, thanks a lot, Stephen. Thank you. And as we finish, I just want to highlight a few people. There was just this father figure coach who shared that during this time of COVID, he has been sharing his food with players, and so he's been fasting. And so I just wanted to just celebrate Alpha, you know, wherever he, just even in this, somewhere hidden in this call, and also just all of us who have been who have been indeed just coming out, being father figures at this time. I also want to congratulate Kaka. A few weeks ago, Kaka became the chairman for Laikipia. Hongera and keep going. I also want to highlight the CSLC coaches, Stephen Uko in Madare, reaching out to lots of young children and transforming their lives. Kari in Rongai, Jeremy in Rongai, I just want to say a big thank you. And also to Andrew Kule Moyale has been joining us, and we're really grateful and glad and looking forward to all that's coming up as things open up. Shukran Sana, and also to Fred. Great job, each and every one of you, wherever you are. We at Ambassadors, we are very glad you're part of us. And also just you get to make time to be part of the fellowship. Yes, where we journey to be father figures. Shukran. I believe you'll be hearing from us if we'll have a closing one or one where we can gather physically. We would love to have a small game time, but hali kwa sasa ziko hivi mnaelewa. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, and I will welcome today. I will welcome Coach Abdul Kaka. Tupe dua leo, tufungie fellowship leo. Shukran. Yeah,
Okay,
Abdul.
let's pray. Okay. Okay, let's pray. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. Ya Allah, tunakuomba kwa wale watu ambao wameshiriki mafanikio ambayo tumepata. Tunawaombea ambassadors ambaye kwamba wamekuwa kipaumbele kutupatia elimu katika coaching. Tunaomba washiriki wote, tunawaombea wale washirika wote ambao wameshiriki katika hii kongamano, na tunafurahi sana ya Allah, wale ambao wako katika safari wapeleke vizuri katika manyumba zao, pia waweke salama, utuondolee hii magonjwa ya COVID ambayo inatusumbua, tuweze kuendelea mbele. Kwa haya machache tunaomba kwa jina ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Amin.
Amen. Amen. Shukran. Shukran sana, and thank you everyone for making time today. Very glad. Yeah. So it's play, practice, play. So I believe tumeshika hayo. It's time now to rest. Tomorrow we'll be back. Yeah.
Harambee Stars.
Practice, play.
My small friend,
Ricky.
my small friend, I want to say